Hello everybody, Grace chatting here again with part 7 in the series How to Survive Living with an Alcoholic. I hope you've been journaling, that you've got your journal and that you're taking notes on this because, hopefully there will be something useful for you in this video. So up till now we've been talking about how living with an alcoholic, eventually, you try everything that you can to change it, to make him change. You change jobs, get him to change jobs, move house, have another baby, do whatever, all manner of things people try, to thinking that things will be different when, and actually it never gets different, and you realize that you're stuck and you begin to feel trapped and helpless, hopeless, powerless, in despair. So that feeling stuck actually is an indicator for you if you can actually stop and register that you're stuck. It can be a wake-up call that you're looking outside yourself for other people to make you happy. And if only they would be how you want them to be, then you'd be happy. And actually it doesn't work that way. And so in the last, in part 5 actually, I was talking about waking up. That there's 2 parts to maturing, becoming a grown-up person, is to wake up first of all, and then to grow up. So in the last video I talked about, because you might think, well, what do you mean grow up? I am grown up. Well, actually, those of us who finish up involved in alcoholic relationships, mostly we're not grown up. And that's the truth of the matter. We may be very intelligent, we may be competent, we may be acting like a grown-up, we may be doing the kind of things that adults did, but it may be that even when you were a little child, you were acting like an adult, you were doing grown-up things, and that may be part of the reason why your emotional and psychological development has been arrested. Your IQ may be high, but your EQ is probably not very high. As I said in the last video, people with a healthy sense of self-esteem and, a healthy sense of themselves would run for the hills as soon as they realize that they're in an alcoholic relationship. Of course, when you love somebody, you want to do everything you can to make it okay, and I get that. And actually, to run for the hills is easier said than done. But it is much easier for someone who has a healthy sense of themselves and their own well-being. They won't stick around and tolerate a lot of unacceptable behaviour over years and extended periods of time. So what is this adult child syndrome? Well, the whole concept of the adult child syndrome was originally developed back in the 70s and the 80s. Mainly the AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and Al-Anon movement brought it to the forefront. There was a lot of studies carried out and a lot of studies in families and in the whole family therapy field and the alcohol field, and people like John Bradshaw and Charles Whitfield had, they wrote about it a lot. So it originally stemmed from adult children of alcoholics, because they found that people who had grown up in a household where there was an alcoholic, that there were a lot of characteristics and personality traits that they had in common. And as time went on, actually they found that it wasn't only children growing up in alcoholic households, it was also children living in households where maybe they had an elderly sick grandparent living in the household, or there was a child with a serious disability, and people with extreme or disproportionate needs, they needed more attention, which skewed the dynamics of the family somewhat. But also children growing up in care, children growing up in boarding schools, where actually any scenario which meant that there was caregiving but there wasn't parenting, and that one person actually had extra attention from the main caregivers, usually the mother. So there, there's a lot more to that than what I've said just now. So please don't pick me up on it, but that's actually where it stemmed from. So people growing up in a household where there was an alcoholic parent, what tended to happen is they either identified with the alcoholic and developed similar behaviors, apparently. And I really don't like to pigeonhole people, so I want you to just take all this with, as a broad brush stroke. But the accepted stats were that 1 in 4 of children who grow up in a household where there's an alcoholic, 1 in 4 of them become either alcoholic or a codependent. So they either adapt and become codependent, or they identify with the alcoholic and they may become a person who has an alcohol problem as well. So what else was discovered about adult children? So we're not just talking about adult children of alcoholics now, we're talking about adult children generally. So one of the big things is that they don't develop emotionally, and they continue to be emotionally dependent, even though they may develop in many other ways. They will tend to be people who are caring and helpful. They are highly represented in all the helping careers and services and professions. They will have a tendency to be indecisive, and that's mostly because they like to please people, they seek approval, so they don't want anybody to be displeased. And so because of their high need to be approved of and not to get it wrong, they will tend to be indecisive. They will tend to defer to the other person, even though maybe in the workplace they may be very decisive and they may be managers or even senior managers. But when it comes to intimate relationships and relationships generally, personal relationships, they may be very deferential and will defer to the other person. When it's kind of comes to making a decision about going out to dinner, and if somebody says to them, where would you like to go? They're likely to say, well, where do you want to go? So they tend to give their power away. They could be described as life lives them. They don't live life. And so what I want to say to you, and please make some notes in your journal, that you actually need to be living from yourself, making your decisions about how you want your life to be, and sharing your life with your partner, not subsuming your life to live around your partner and fit in with everything, particularly if he is getting drunk regularly and spending a lot of time drinking and a lot of his headspace, time and energy, and spending a lot of time recovering. So one of the other things in the profile of an adult child is they have real difficulty saying no to somebody because they don't want to displease them. Fundamentally, they find themselves in the position of a victim, where if something's wrong, they kind of think, oh gosh, what did I do? Is it my fault? And they will look to see what did they do wrong. If somebody looks unhappy, they assume, it must be something to do with them. And so that's only just some of the traits that an adult child has, because they haven't been able to mature and develop to be able to take a stand and decide, this is what I want. They haven't been able to learn to trust their own judgment and make good decisions and not get over concerned about what other people might think. So I will say some more about this whole adult child syndrome and how we need to grow up and what are the steps and stages that you need to take yourself forward in growing up. Bye for now.